Dear Africans in America, it's now been more than 400 years since the first enslaved Africans were brought in chains to the U.S. If after all of this time, your best assessments regarding our plight is that it's connected to a Bible that was in fact written by our most ungodliest enemies and that was brutally forced upon our enslaved ancestors, and if you also believe that our collective condition is caused by a silly slave syndrome myth, which presents what would in fact be the least effective and least plausible method used for controlling generations of millions of people. If these are your beliefs after more than 400 years, you should therefore be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed for believing such nonsense. A speaker of truth has no friends. African Proverbs. You believe those ridiculous things because you are in fact mentally enslaved. Whenever people are mentally enslaved, they'll always believe nonsense because to the mentally enslaved, nonsense always makes perfect sense. They've got our people so mentally enslaved that telling these Black liberating truths now literally offends millions of Black people. Regardless of who it offends, I will not be silent to comfort or to appease those among us that are ignorant and mentally enslaved by white oppressive forces. Black people, it's time to wake up and learn the truth of our plight and condition, which is that through the white society's monopoly over information that we systematically receive, as well as through their control over our media images, white oppressive forces have manipulated the group minds of the Black population in very negative and disturbing ways. The true reason why millions of Black people now self-identifies by the N-word, glorifies pimps, and sags our pants is because our oppressors writes all of our narratives and controls our media images. This isn't scapegoating. Those who write the people's narratives and controls their media images literally controls their culture. Because white oppressive forces writes all of our narratives and controls all of our mainstream media images, they negatively steer our culture while misleading us to believe that we're negatively steering ourselves. This is also possible because of the fact that people's thoughts and behaviors aligns with the information that they repetitively receive. Therefore, the white oppressor's greatest power over Black people is the fact that they control the information that we repetitively receive, which allows them to shape our thoughts and our behaviors in ways that are against our own self-interest and in ways that instead serve the interests of their white society. They've transformed their control over information that Black people repetitively receives into their greatest weapon used against Black people. They constantly and systematically creates and feeds false information to the Black population that keeps us thinking and behaving in ways that are against our own interests and in ways instead that serve their nefarious agendas against us. It's the true reason why many Black people now perceive ourselves as being our worst enemies and reveres Caucasians in spite of such a brutally horrific history of the contrary. Through the white society's monopoly over information that we systematically receive, white oppressive forces have manipulated millions of Black people to think and behave in ways that are beneficial to their white society. The nefarious warfare tactic is called disinformation warfare. Disinformation warfare is an offensive psychological warfare tactic that uses disinformation, misinformation, and unrelenting fraudulent propaganda as a weapon to manipulate targeted populations to think and behave in ways that are against their own interests, and instead in ways serving the nefarious agendas of those who are deploying the disinformation warfare. It's very effective because regardless of how intelligent people are, if it's possible to control the information that they repetitively and systematically receive, it's entirely possible to control what they'll think, what they'll believe, and how they'll behave. Through their disinformation propaganda campaign, they've also got millions of Black people now believing many things that literally insults our own intelligence. The truths are, in fact, the opposite from what they've manipulated millions of Black people to believe. We are not our own worst enemies, while oppressive forces are still, in fact, our worst enemies. We never made the N-word ours, and using it does not empower us. We were, in fact, socially engineered through a tactic called media social engineering by white oppressive forces to self-identify ourselves by the N-word. They did this to us because words, when repeated often enough, has power over the subconscious mind. When we repeatedly call ourselves by the N-word, this subconsciously conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent subordinate identity that aids the white society in maintaining its social dominance over us. And we, Africans in the U.S., are in fact originally from Africa. Countless millions of us have taken DNA analysis that have scientifically proven our African identity. Millions of Africans throughout the U.S., the Caribbean, they've all taken DNA analysis that confirm our African identity. We are in fact Africans. The reason why they want us believing that we're not from Africa is because when we Africans in the U.S. and throughout the Caribbean are divided from Native Africans, we lose our global numerical advantage and we're stripped of all hopes of defeating global white supremacy. Keeping us believing that we're not from Africa also separates us from our unifying African heritage. Without having a base identity to connect to our vast cultural wealth, over time, we become further fragmented and we become weaker as a people. We can then be made into anything the white oppressors wants us made into. Our core problem is that far too many Black people are totally clueless of the covert war that white oppressive forces secretly wages against our collective minds unrelentingly. It's the truth of our plight and condition, the truth they don't want us to know. And in regards to the Bible, a Bible that was originally brutally forced upon our enslaved ancestors to facilitate their enslavement of our ancestors will never now set us free. That's an idiotic belief. Furthermore, a religious book that strongly condones the evils of slavery and that was in fact written by history's proven most ungodliest group of people, is inherently totally disqualified from containing the true words of God. They've got our people believing many ridiculous premises that literally insults our own intelligence. Our core problem as Black people is that most of us can't see that our minds are being systematically manipulated to think in ways that serves and protects the system of white supremacy. This is why those of us who knows the truth must teach African proverb. Black people, open your eyes and see our true reality. There is no rational reason that millions of Black people are thinking and believing the ridiculous things that millions of us now do. The true reason is because white oppressive forces have intentionally fed lots of fraudulent propaganda into the Black communities that are deliberately designed to divide us, confuse us, manipulate us, and demoralize the Black masses. It confused us to such an extent that we're unable to come together in the interest of liberating ourselves from white oppression. It's how white oppressive forces protects their white society from massive unified black retribution, given its long-standing history of racism, discrimination, and oppression of black people. If you think that this is some silly conspiracy theory, it's because you don't know true history. What I'm disclosing is actually a very common hidden secret practice. Throughout history, those empires that maintain their control and power over the oppressed population have always done so by manipulating the collective minds of the oppressed. They go out of their ways to make sure that the oppressed population are perpetually misled and manipulated to think in ways that aids the oppressors in maintaining their social status, their control, and social dominance over the oppressed population. Therefore, the oppressed population ways of thinking and the collective mindset is a formulation that have been subliminally embedded into their collective minds by the oppressors without the oppressed even realizing it. This practice was never abandoned. Today, this heinous practice and tradition still continues in regards to black people living under white dominance. Black people are being perpetually inundated with fraudulent propaganda that are deliberately designed to manipulate the black masses to think and behave in ways that are against our own interests, and instead in ways that serves and protects the interests of the system of white supremacy. Case, point, and proof. The following are facts that most black people are totally clueless of. The white media's unrelenting negative depictions of black people that amplifies the negative to the point that it distorts our reality is much more than just biased media reporting. It is actually an insidious black racially demoralizing divide and rule psychological warfare campaign. Demoralized divide and rule is the method of maintaining control over a large targeted population through constant and unrelenting demoralization in order to create self-hate and division between them. The white society writes all black people's narratives, and it controls all black people's mainstream media images. The white society therefore literally owns black people's interpretation of our collective state. They control us through unrelenting demoralization. It is a control system that utilizes the immense power that shame has upon the human mind to mentally enslave millions of black people. Those black people who don't critically think never notices their mental chains. This is the truth of our plight and condition. This system is deployed like a massive media marketing campaign that constantly subjects the black population to receiving only the fraudulent worst narratives about ourselves. Within this system, fraudulent black racially demoralizing and black racially devaluing propaganda is being pumped unrelentingly into the unsuspecting minds of the black population without being challenged nor counterbalanced by an equal amount of black positive racially affirming information. Everything we believe about ourselves are negative. It conveys a subliminal message that black people are now our own worst enemies and that we therefore need whites to govern over our lives. Moreover, that black people should admire, respect, and trust only whites. This system is extremely effective because when black people are repetitively presented these noted narratives from trusted white media sources, it can be very difficult to resist its implied propaganda programming, especially when the propaganda is being told daily and so unrelentingly. Its weapon is the demoralizing message that it carries and the way that it negatively impacts the black population in terms of our beliefs, our behaviors, and our unity. With time being unable to refute the constant negative information that is being told about us, Many black people eventually internalize it and they accept those negative narratives about us. Many black people then experience profound feelings of humiliation and we ask ourselves, damn man, why we can't get our crap together? This constant humiliation and unrelenting humiliation causes many black people to become resentful towards our own people. We become demoralized, divided, self-loathing, and we become resentful towards our own people. In the most extreme cases, many black people will attempt to disassociate themselves from all other blacks. Psychologists calls this disassociation. It's a defense mechanism that evolves to put a distance between oneself and the pain and the constant demoralization. Some black people will then make it their personal mission to go out of their way to try to show white people that we're not all bad. This is why many black people seek white approval in spite of the horrific history. Within this propaganda campaign, the white oppressors also constantly inundates the black population with fraudulent propaganda that exaggerates the issue of black on black crime. Doing so manipulates the black population to perceive ourselves as being our own worst enemies. This propaganda campaign successfully shifts black collective aggressions away from the white society and redirects against ourselves. It also makes us fear ourselves and makes us perceive that that it makes us more compliant with white dominance over our lives. In fact, it makes many of us even prefer it. This is the truth of our plight and condition. It has nothing to do with biblical fairy tale or city slave syndrome myth. It doesn't require that you suspend your intellectual way of thinking. This is the truth that they don't want you to know. We must function based on what is true so that our liberating remedies will also be true and accurate. Black people, it's time to wake up. The time of believing in dumb shit is over. One love and peace.